New Horizon was a world of hope. It was not Earth, not the birthplace of humankind, but it was something almost as important. For the people who lived there, it was proof that humanity could reach out into the stars, settle on strange soil, and still build homes, schools, and futures for their children. The colony lay on the outer rim of explored space, a green and fertile world circling a warm sun. Vast forests stretched across continents, and silver rivers carved paths into the valleys. At night, settlers would look up and see 3 moons glimmering above, a sight that never failed to remind them how far they were from home. Families lived in cities of white stone and glass. Farmers grew crops in the fertile fields. Scientists studied the alien wildlife, and miners dug deep to collect rare metals for the growing Terran fleets. For 2 decades, New Horizon had known peace. Children played in parks without fear, and traders carried goods from orbit to the surface with ease. They thought themselves safe. They were wrong. Far away, in the darkness between the stars, the Dravak Dominion watched. The Dravak were an old empire, cruel and proud. For thousands of years they had ruled their corner of the galaxy through fire and chains. To them, humanity was a young and arrogant race unworthy of respect. Humans spread fast, faster than most species. In less than 2 centuries of star travel, they had already claimed dozens of colonies. To the Dravak, this was dangerous. So they decided to make an example. The Dominion sent no warning, no declaration of war. Their fleet arrived in the New Horizon system without a word, dark shapes gliding out of hyperspace like predators. Hundreds of warships, their hulls black as night, took position above the planet. When the people of New Horizon looked up, they saw death. At first, confusion spread. Some thought it was an accident, that the ships had drifted into the system by mistake. Others believed help was coming, that these were human allies. But when the first city was struck, all hope vanished. Bolts of plasma rained down from orbit. Towers of glass and steel shattered. Streets melted under burning fire. Whole districts vanished in seconds. Families ran into the open, searching for shelter, but there was none. The Dominion did not fight soldiers. They did not land troops to capture, they simply destroyed. From orbit, they targeted power stations, hospitals, farms. They reduced water plants to ash and collapsed mines with precision strikes. Their weapons were cold, efficient, and merciless. One by one, cities were turned into ruins. The colonists tried to resist. Small defense ships rose from the surface, brave pilots screaming defiance into the comms as they flew toward impossible odds. But the Dravak cut them down in moments. A swarm of black fighters tore through the skies, leaving only burning fragments. On the surface, militias fought with old rifles and homemade explosives, but what could they do against orbital bombardment? Entire platoons vanished under a single strike. Brave men and women died in silence, their courage lost under the shadow of alien warships. Among the chaos was Governor Elias Varon, the elected leader of New Horizon. He stood in the colony command center, watching the screens as each city went dark. His staff begged him to flee, to take one of the last transports and escape, but he refused. His duty was here, with his people. In his final transmission, broadcast on every frequency, he spoke. With calm strength, "This is New Horizon. We are under attack by unknown forces. To Earth, to all colonies, hear us. We will endure as long as we can, but if we fall, do not let our deaths be forgotten. Humanity must never allow this crime to stand." Minutes later, the command center was reduced to rubble. The governor, his staff, and the last defenders of New Horizon were gone. By the end of the day, New Horizon was no more. 20 million souls, men, women, and children, were wiped out. Farms burned, forests turned to ash, rivers boiled into steam. What had once been a thriving world was now a graveyard. The Dravak Dominion did not linger. They sent no message, no claim of victory. Their fleets simply vanished back into the void, leaving silence in their wake. Only fragments of data, carried by a handful of fleeing ships, reached the rest of human space. These ships were scarred and broken, their crews half dead, but they carried the truth. They carried proof of what had happened. The news spread like fire. On Earth, the broadcast was shown to the United Terran Council. Leaders from every nation, every colony watched in silence as images of burning cities and screaming families filled the screens. Hardened generals wept openly. Politicians clenched their fists. Civilians across the solar system stood in shock as the reality sank in. For the first time in generations, humanity felt the same emotion together. Not fear, not despair, but fury. The people of Earth had endured wars, disasters, and endless struggles in their history. They had been underestimated before, mocked and ignored by older species. But this was different. This was not a border skirmish or a trade dispute. This was the deliberate slaughter of innocents. The Dominion believed humanity would bow. They believed the young species would beg for mercy, would accept their place as subjects. But they did not know humanity. Across the solar system, shipyards came alive. On Mars, the red deserts thundered with the sound of forges as colossal battleships were assembled. On the Moon, orbital stations lit up as dreadnoughts rolled out one after another. In the asteroid belt, automated factories turned raw rock into fleets of steel. Earth itself became a war machine. Every dockyard, every foundry, every research lab worked day and night. Millions volunteered to fight, lining up in endless rows, to serve in the Terran Armada. For years, humanity had built fleets for exploration and defense. Now, they turned every resource to one purpose: vengeance. In secret archives, ancient war doctrines were opened. Old blueprints, never meant to see. Daylight were revived. Weapons that had been hidden, considered too dangerous, were brought back. Humanity had always been preparing for the worst. Now, the worst had come. Weeks passed. Where once the galaxy thought humans owned only a few thousand ships, the truth emerged. Humanity had hidden its true strength, waiting until the day it was needed. 700,000 warships, carriers, cruisers, destroyers, dreadnoughts. Fleets so large that they darkened the skies above Earth. Ships stretched from orbit to the horizon, endless rows of steel and firepower. Each bore the flag of humanity. Each carried the anger of billions. When the Armada assembled, silence filled the comms for a moment. The fleet commander, Admiral Saren Holt, spoke only one line before the ships jumped into hyperspace. New Horizon will be avenged. The galaxy will learn what it means to awaken Earth's wrath. The message of New Horizon's destruction spread like lightning through every human colony. In the streets of Earth's great cities, people gathered around giant screens, watching again and again the final broadcast of Governor Elias Varon. His calm voice, his steady eyes, and then the sudden blast of fire. These images burned themselves into every human mind. In the colonies of Mars, Luna, Europa, Titan, and beyond, people whispered the same words. They killed our people. Grief turned into rage. Humanity, once divided by nations and rivalries, stood together as one for the first time in history. The memory of 20 million innocent lives lost on New Horizon united them more strongly than any treaty or government ever had. The Council of Earth in the shining city of Geneva, the United Terran Council gathered. Delegates from every world came, some traveling across weeks of space just to sit at the great round table. Normally, such meetings were filled with endless debates, long speeches, and disagreements. Not this time. When the chairman opened the floor, silence filled the chamber. No one argued. No one hesitated. They all knew what had to be done. Admiral Saren Holt, commander of Earth's defense fleets, stood and addressed them. His voice was steady but carried the weight of anger that everyone felt. The Dravak Dominion believes we will kneel. They believe humanity is weak. They think they can erase one of our colonies and face no consequence. They are wrong. New Horizon will not be forgotten, and its destruction will not go unanswered. For every life they took, we will strike tenfold. The time for silence is over. The time for war has come. The chamber erupted, not in argument but in thunderous approval. Every hand rose to vote in favor of war. The decision was unanimous. Humanity had chosen its path. Factories of war from that day forward, Earth and its colonies transformed into something terrifying, a civilization united in total war. The vast shipyards of Mars expanded beyond imagination. The skies above the red planet glowed as giant orbital rings forged the skeletons of warships larger than cities. On the Moon, underground factories worked day and night, producing endless streams of missiles, plasma cannons, and armored hulls. Engineers who once designed exploration craft now poured their talents into weapons of vengeance. The asteroid belt, once filled with miners, became the beating heart of industry. Automated drones ripped through rocks, feeding raw material into colossal smelters. Out of the smoke and fire came cruisers, carriers, and destroyers, ready for battle. Even distant colonies on Europa and Titan contributed. Their icy caverns were hollowed into hangars, shelters, and storage vaults for fleets. Every colony, no matter how small, gave something, or fuel, ships, or soldiers. Soldiers of Earth. While the factories roared, humanity's people rose up in numbers never seen before. On Earth, endless lines of recruits filled the plazas of ancient cities. From New York to Beijing, from Cairo to Sao Paulo, young men and women stepped forward to wear the uniform of the Terran Armada. Many had never held a weapon before, but their hearts burned with purpose. On Mars, miners who once dug tunnels for iron volunteered to serve as shock troops, carrying heavy weapons with the strength earned from years of labor. On the colonies of Europa, scientists and researchers joined as engineers and medics, determined to keep the fleet alive no matter the cost. Even children of refugees from New Horizon enlisted, swearing vengeance for their lost families. They carried the names of their destroyed cities as banners, promising that the galaxy would remember. Building the Armada, Admiral Saren Holt stood aboard the command deck of the Titanus, a massive super-dreadnought under construction above Saturn. Through the wide windows he could see the growing fleet spread across space like a swarm of stars. Already hundreds of thousands of ships had been assembled. Every day more arrived from shipyards across the system. Carriers the size of mountains bristling with fighters, cruisers designed for speed and precision strikes, destroyers built for swarming assaults. But most terrifying were the dreadnoughts, gigantic beasts of steel, armed with weapons powerful enough to shatter moons. Some whispered that Earth's engineers had even revived ancient designs once banned by treaties, weapons of such destructive force that no alien empire had dared use them. For centuries, the numbers were staggering: 700,000 warships. No fleet in galactic history had ever been so large, and they were not simply built for show. Each ship carried the fury of humanity, the determination of a species that refused to bow. The galaxy reacts beyond human space. Alien civilizations watched. In disbelief, the Voran Alliance, an old union of peaceful species, sent envoys begging Earth to stand down. They warned that war with the Dominion would bring ruin to humanity. "You are too young," they said. "You cannot fight such an ancient power." But Earth ignored them. The Kasari Republic, rivals of the Dominion, secretly sent spies to observe. They had long hated the Dravak, but even they were shocked by humanity's preparations. "They are mad," one Kasari admiral whispered. Mad, and yet, perhaps unstoppable. Other empires scoffed. They believed humanity's numbers were lies, propaganda meant to scare. Surely no young species could build such a fleet so quickly. Surely these were hollow ships, weak imitations of true warcraft. But deep in their hearts, fear began to grow. The oath before the Armada launched, Earth held a ceremony watched by every human across the stars. In the great plaza of Geneva, a memorial was built. At its center burned an eternal flame, lit from the wreckage of a ship that had escaped New Horizon. Around it were engraved the names of all 20 million who had died. Millions gathered in person, billions more watched through broadcasts. Admiral Holt stood before the flame and raised his hand in salute. "People of Earth, people of Mars, people of every world where humans live. Today we make a promise. Never again will our colony stand alone. Never again will our children die without justice. We are one people, one fleet, one fury. For New Horizon, we march to war. The crowd roared, their voices shaking the ground. Across the galaxy, human fleets powered up their engines. First march of the Armada, when the 700,000 ships assembled above Earth. The sight was beyond imagination. From orbit, the planet was hidden beneath layers of steel. The skies burned with the glow of engines. Warships stretched from the upper atmosphere into the blackness of space. It was as if Earth itself had become a star surrounded by fire. The people watching from the surface cheered and wept. Never had they seen such unity, such strength. Children pointed at the streaks of light as carriers rose into the heavens. Elders who remembered Earth's old wars shook their heads in awe. For the first time in history, humanity was no longer a collection of nations or colonies. It was a single force, a storm waiting to be unleashed. Admiral Holt's words on the bridge of the Titanus. Admiral Holt looked out at the endless fleet. His officers waited for his command. Across the Armada, every crew, every pilot, every soldier listened for his voice. He spoke calmly, but with fire in every word. Brothers and sisters of humanity, the Dravak Dominion believes we are weak. They believe we will kneel. Today we prove them wrong. Today we show the galaxy what it means to be human. We do not forget. We do not forgive. For New Horizon, for every child, every family, every soul taken from us, we rise. And we will not stop until justice is done. Silence followed his words, but it was not empty silence. It was the silence before thunder. Then, as one, the Armada answered with a single word. I. Into the void engines roared. Hyperspace gates lit up across the system. One by one, the fleets leapt into the stars. Carriers vanished into streaks of light. Dreadnoughts tore through the void. Destroyers swarmed like hunting packs. From Earth to Mars, from the moon to Titan, people watched as their defenders disappeared into the night sky. They knew many would never return. They knew the cost would be great. But they also knew this. Humanity would never again be seen as weak. Never again would aliens believe they could slaughter humans without consequence. New Horizon had been destroyed, but in its ashes, something greater had risen, the wrath of Earth. The Terran Armada moved like a storm through the void. 700,000 ships, each carrying the fury of a species that had lost too much. The galaxy had never seen such power concentrated in one place. Where the fleet passed, traders hid, pirates fled, and even neutral empires watched in silence. The first destination was chosen carefully, Vega Prime, a vital system of the Dravak Dominion. Vega was not only rich in resources but also heavily defended. It was a stronghold meant to show the strength of the Dominion. Admiral Saren Holt knew this. He knew the battle ahead would be bloody, but he also knew that the galaxy was watching. The first clash would decide how the rest of the war was seen. Humanity had to prove itself here. Humanity had to strike fear. The Dominion's pride on Vega Prime's throne world. The Dravak generals laughed when their scouts reported the approach of Earth's fleet. 700,000 ships? Impossible, they said. Humans were too young, too weak, too scattered to gather such power. They believed the numbers were lies, empty shells meant to intimidate. High Lord Korath, master of Vega's defenses, addressed his officers. They are only humans. Their ships are untested, their captains are children. They dare to challenge us here at Vega? We will crush them in one strike and scatter their ashes across the stars. The Dominion assembled a massive fleet of their own, 400,000 warships, veterans of countless battles commanded by admirals who had known war for centuries. Their weapons had burned entire civilizations to dust. They had no doubt that Earth would meet the same fate. The arrival, the void shuddered as hyperspace ruptured. One by one, humanity's ships appeared in the Vega system, streaks of blue light fading into solid steel. Carriers, dreadnoughts, destroyers, all emerging in perfect formation. Within minutes, the stars themselves seemed to vanish, hidden behind the endless swarm of Terran ships. On the bridge of the Titanus, Admiral Holt stood tall. His officers reported numbers and positions, but his eyes stayed locked on the great holographic display of the system. Ahead lay Vega Prime, shining under the protection of the Dominion fleet. The moment had come. "Signal the fleet," Holt said. "Prepare for engagement. Today the galaxy will learn what it means to fight humanity." Clash of Titans. The two armadas closed the distance. At first there was silence, an eerie pause as both sides measured one another. Then, as if on cue, the void exploded in fire. The Dominion struck first. Thousands of plasma bolts cut through the darkness, glowing rivers of destruction aimed at the human front lines. Explosions lit up space as destroyers were torn apart. But humanity answered. Missiles streaked forward in waves, guided by AIs and human instinct alike. Some were intercepted, but thousands slipped through. When they struck, entire Dominion cruisers vanished in bursts of light. The battle became chaos. Swarms of fighters darted between the Titans, dogfights painting the void with trails of fire. Carriers unleashed endless wings of strike craft while dreadnoughts fired beams that carved through enemy shields. Admiral Holt gave no quarter. "Push the left flank. Bring the cruisers forward. Dreadnoughts, hold the center. Fighters, swarm their command ships. Do not let them breathe." Human ships moved with speed and creativity. They did not fight like other species. Where Dominion fleets relied on rigid formations and strict discipline, humans thrived in chaos. They adapted, improvised, and struck from unexpected angles. The turning point. At first, the Dominion pressed hard. Their veteran ships outgunned many of the Terran cruisers. Dozens of human ships fell, burning in silence as their crews died. For a moment, it seemed the Dominion's confidence was justified. But then the humans began to shift. Instead of holding tight lines, they scattered into small groups, weaving around Dominion formations like hunters circling prey. Destroyers darted in and out, striking weak points. Carriers unleashed fighters that struck supply ships deep behind enemy lines. A Dominion admiral shouted in frustration, "They fight like madmen, no order, no discipline." But he was wrong. There was order, human order. Not predictable, not rigid, but alive. Each captain fought as if the entire war depended on their courage, and somehow it worked. When the Dominion pressed the center, they suddenly found themselves surrounded. Human destroyers had looped behind them, cutting supply ships and hammering their engines. When Dominion cruisers tried to retreat, they found human fighters waiting, diving into their formations with suicidal bravery. The void that had once burned with Dominion fire now glowed with Terran vengeance. Heroes among the Star Stories began to spread even as the battle raged. The Vigilant, a small Terran destroyer, threw itself into the path of Dominion torpedoes to save a carrier, sacrificing all hands but saving thousands. The Atlas, a Martian-built battleship, rammed a Dominion dreadnought head-on, tearing both ships apart in a blaze that lit up the entire battlefield. Even civilian ships, converted into makeshift gun platforms, held their ground against Dominion cruisers. Every human crew fought with the same determination. No retreat, no surrender. Admiral Holt listened to the reports, his jaw tightening with each sacrifice. He hated every life lost, but he also knew this was what made humanity different. They did not fear death when the cause was just. The Dominion breaks hours turned into a day. The battle stretched endlessly, fleets tearing each other apart under Vega's sun. But slowly, surely, the tide shifted. The Dominion had expected an easy victory. Instead, they faced an enemy that grew stronger the longer they fought. Human tactics evolved mid-battle. Every mistake became a lesson. Every death became fuel for vengeance. When Holt ordered the Titanus and its sister dreadnoughts to fire their main weapons, the balance shattered. Beams of white-hot energy sliced through Dominion command ships, killing admirals in seconds. Without leaders, the Dominion fleet began to falter, and when the Dominion tried to retreat, they found the humans waiting. Dozens of hyperspace gates had been blocked by Terran task forces. The trap closed like jaws around prey, One by one, Dominion ships were torn apart. Victory at Vega. When the last Dominion ship exploded, silence fell over the comms. For a moment, only static filled the air. Then across the fleet, cheers erupted. The impossible had happened. Humanity had won. Not only won, but annihilated a Dominion stronghold fleet. On the surface of Vega Prime, rebels who had long suffered under Dominion rule looked to the skies and saw freedom. For the first time in centuries, the Dravak had been defeated, and it was humanity who had done it. Admiral Holt stood at the command deck of the Titaness, weary but unbroken. His officers looked to him, waiting for his words. He spoke softly, but every ear in the fleet heard him. "We have taken the first step. New Horizon has been avenged, but our journey is not over. Today, the galaxy has seen what it means to fight humanity. Tomorrow they will see what it means to fear us." The galaxy trembles. News of the Battle of Vega spread faster than light. Across the stars, empires reeled in shock. The Dravak Dominion, once feared as unstoppable, had lost an entire fleet. Their pride was shattered. Their enemies whispered that the age of the Dominion was ending. Other species, once dismissive of humanity, now watched with new eyes. A young race had defeated an empire in open battle. Their fleets were vast, their courage unmatched. Whispers spread in taverns, markets, and courts. The humans are coming. A flame that would not die for the crews of the Terran Armada. Victory at Vega was not only a triumph, it was a promise. They had shown the galaxy that humanity was not weak. They had proven that the destruction of New Horizon would not go unanswered, and they knew this was only the beginning. The war was far from over. The Dominion still had power, still had fleets, still had worlds to defend. But humanity had something greater. They had unity, they had fury, they had hope. The Battle of Vega Prime was over, but the war had only begun. Where once the galaxy had whispered that humans would kneel, now it whispered something new. The humans are coming. The Dominion, proud and ancient, had lost an entire fleet. Their commanders had sworn humanity would break, yet instead it was the Dominion that bled. Their enemies rejoiced, their allies trembled, and their subjects, once cowed by fear, lifted their heads with hope. For humanity, the victory was fuel. Vega was not the end. It was the spark that ignited a firestorm. The March of the Armada Admiral. Saren Holt gathered his commanders aboard the Titaness. Around him floated holographic maps of Dominion space, glowing red with countless systems. Vega was only the beginning, he said, his voice steady. The Dominion still commands thousands of worlds. They will not stop until we make them stop. We will not fight for ground or for territory. We will fight to break their will. We strike fast, we strike everywhere, and we do not stop. The plan was daring. Instead of focusing on one front, the Terran Armada would split into dozens of task forces. Each would plunge deep into Dominion space, striking military bases, shipyards, and supply lines all at once. No empire had ever fought this way before. Most species fought slow wars, claiming one world at a time. Humanity would bring total war, everywhere, all at once. The commanders nodded. They understood. To win, humanity had to fight not only with weapons but with fear. Fire across the stars, the campaign began. In the Lornak system, Terran destroyers ambushed Dominion convoys. Supply ships burst apart in flames, their wreckage drifting into the void. Without supplies, Dominion fleets starved. In the Kelros sector, human carriers unleashed swarms of fighters onto shipyards. Entire factories burned, their half-built warships reduced to molten wrecks. On the planet Draxus, a Dominion fortress world, human marines descended through storms of plasma fire. They fought street by street, block by block against entrenched soldiers. But the humans did not retreat. For every marine who fell, two more pressed forward. When the smoke cleared, Draxus was free. Everywhere the Dominion looked, the humans were there. Destroying, burning, liberating. The human way of war. What shocked the galaxy most was not humanity's weapons, but their style of fighting. The Dominion had expected humans to be rigid, to follow predictable patterns. Instead, humanity thrived in chaos. Captains acted on instinct, soldiers improvised on the battlefield, and whole fleets shifted strategies in the middle of combat. To the Dominion, this was madness. To humanity, it was survival. On Aradan IV, when Dominion artillery pinned down a human regiment, the soldiers did not wait for orders. They tunneled through collapsed buildings, emerging behind enemy lines. The Dominion garrison collapsed within hours. In the Threx Nebula, a Terran fleet deliberately allowed itself to be chased. Dominion admirals believed they had cornered the humans until hidden cruisers burst from the nebula, cutting off retreat. The Dominion lost 50 ships in minutes. Every battle became a story. Every story spread across the galaxy. The humans were unpredictable, unstoppable, unbreakable. Sparks of rebellion as humanity pushed forward. Something unexpected began to happen. Worlds that had long suffered under Dominion rule began to rise. On slave planets, workers armed themselves with stolen weapons and fought back. On tribute worlds, governors refused orders and declared independence. They did not rise because they trusted humanity. They rose because they saw what humanity was doing. They saw the Dominion bleeding. They saw that the monster could be hurt. And everywhere rebels rose, humanity answered. Terran fleets dropped supplies, weapons, and sometimes soldiers to aid them. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy saw the Dominion pushed back not by another empire but by hope, the wrath of Earth. The Dominion tried to answer. They gathered fleets to defend their worlds, but humanity struck too fast. They tried to fortify strongholds, but humans bypassed them and struck at their hearts. When the Dominion retaliated with terror, bombing rebel cities, humanity answered tenfold. For every rebel world destroyed, humanity burned 3 Dominion fortresses. Soon, Dominion commanders spoke in fear. The words Earth's wrath spread among their ranks. Some even deserted, unwilling to face the humans. High Lord Korath, humiliated by the loss at Vega, demanded absolute loyalty. Crush them, he commanded. But even he began to see the truth. Humanity was not like the others. They did not fight for conquest or greed. They fought with something far more dangerous, vengeance and unity. A galaxy watches in distant star systems. Alien leaders debated what to do. The Voran Alliance, once begging Earth to stand down, now wondered if they should ally with them. Better to stand beside the humans than against them, one Voran ambassador said nervously. The Kasari Republic, long enemies of the Dominion, sent hidden aid to Earth, fuel, intelligence, and materials. They wanted humanity to keep striking, to keep the Dominion bleeding. But some empires whispered warnings. What happens when humanity finishes with the Dominion? Will they stop? Or will they turn their fleets on the rest of us? Fear spread as quickly as respect. Tales of sacrifice. The advance was not without cost. The Terran Armada lost ships, thousands of them. Whole crews gave their lives to win victories. But for every ship destroyed, 3 more were built. For every soldier lost, 10 more volunteered. Stories of sacrifice spread like wildfire. On Bastion Outpost, a small Terran garrison held off a Dominion assault for 5 days. Outnumbered 20-1, they refused to retreat. When relief fleets finally arrived, the outpost was gone, but so was the Dominion army. On Carina Station, engineers worked as Dominion ships bombarded them. They refused to abandon their post, keeping hyperspace gates open for fleeing civilians until the last moment. The station's destruction became a symbol of human courage. Each sacrifice only fueled humanity further. The Dominion had destroyed New Horizon to break them. Instead, they had made them unstoppable. Admiral Holt's resolve in the quiet moments between battles. Admiral Holt walked the silent halls of the Titanus. He studied the memorial wall, where names of fallen ships and crews were carved after every battle. The list grew longer every day. He hated it. Every name was a life cut short, a promise broken. But he also knew those names were not in vain. He spoke quietly to his officers. We bleed, yes, but so does the Dominion, and when we are done, they will bleed so much they can never rise again. For every colony they burned, we will burn 10 of theirs. For every innocent they killed, we will bring justice. His officers nodded. They would follow him anywhere. The fear spreads. Months passed. Dominion space, once a fortress, now looked like a battlefield. Systems that had flown the Dominion flag for centuries now lay in ruins. Rebels joined the human cause. Merchants secretly supplied Terran fleets. Even Dominion citizens began to whisper that perhaps the age of their empire was ending. And through it all, one phrase echoed again and again. The humans are coming. Dominion soldiers feared to face them. Admirals dreaded the thought of another battle. Entire worlds prayed that the Terran armada would pass them by. But humanity did not stop. Humanity did not rest. Toward the throne world. By the 10th month of war, the unthinkable had happened. Human fleets stood only a few jumps away from the Dominion's throne world. The heart of the Empire, once thought untouchable, now trembled at the approach of Earth's wrath. High Lord Korath gathered what remained of his forces. He promised his people that the Dominion would rise again, that humanity would break at the gates of the capital. But deep inside, he knew the truth. The humans had become a storm that could not be stopped. The Dominion throne world loomed ahead like a dark crown in the void. Vast and ancient, it had ruled its empire for thousands of years, commanding fleets, armies, and fear. Now, for the first time, it faced humanity's wrath. 700,000 warships had pierced the Dominion's defenses, striking world after world. Now, the heart of the empire itself trembled. Admiral Saren Holt stood on the bridge of the Titanus, staring at the holographic projection of the throne world. Every line of the map was marked with systems already liberated, supply lines cut, fleets destroyed. For the first time, the galaxy saw the full power of humanity unleashed. This is it, Holt said quietly. The final battle. Nothing can stop us now. The last line of defense, the Dominion had gathered every fleet they could spare. 30,000 warships orbited the throne world, bristling with energy shields and weapons that could vaporize continents. Their soldiers lined every city, every fortress, every space station. High Lord Korath, once proud and ruthless, now looked weary. His generals whispered rumors of human tactics, their unpredictability, their courage. Nothing in Dominion history prepared them for this. We hold, Korath told his officers. We must hold. If we lose the throne world, we lose everything. But even he knew the truth. Humanity did not fight like other species. They did not fear death. They did not retreat, and they did not yield. Humanity strikes. The Terran armada emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. Carriers unleashed fighters in waves that darkened the sky. Dreadnoughts and battleships charged, their cannons blazing with fire and plasma. Destroyers swarmed, cutting off reinforcements. Admiral Holt's voice rang across comms. All fleets, engage. Today we finish what was begun at New Horizon. Strike hard, strike everywhere, and do not stop until the Dominion kneels. The void erupted in fire. Bolts of plasma streaked across the stars, missile barrages lit up space, and beams of energy carved lines across enemy shields. For the first time in Dominion history, they faced an enemy that would not relent, that would not pause, that would not die. Breaking the enemy. The battle raged for hours, then days. Dominion ships fell under relentless Terran assault. The throne world's planetary defenses fired constantly, but human engineers had predicted their every move. Saboteurs in stealth craft disabled shield generators. Bombers penetrated orbital defenses to strike the citadel itself. On the surface, human marines fought, Dominion soldiers in brutal combat. They cleared streets, secured cities, and liberated the enslaved population. Everywhere humans went, fear followed. Dominion troops began to surrender in droves, unwilling to fight against an enemy so determined, so fierce, so united. High Lord Korath watched from his palace tower as news came of each fleet destroyed. Each city lost. Rage filled him, but it was too late. Humanity had become more than soldiers, they were a force of nature. The turning point. Then came the final strike. The Titanus, along with 12 of the largest dreadnoughts, charged straight toward the central citadel. Their weapons were the largest ever built, planet-shattering cannons capable of leveling entire continents. Human fighters swarmed in front, cutting off escape and providing cover. Korath's personal fleet tried to intercept, but it was already too late. Human ships moved with perfect coordination. Every attack, every maneuver was calculated yet unpredictable to the Dominion. They were trapped. In one final, terrifying blast, the dreadnoughts fired. The citadel shook. Energy shields buckled and collapsed. Entire sections of the city crumbled into dust. High Lord Korath barely escaped the blast, but his empire was broken. Humanity's victory, when the smoke cleared, the throne world was silent. Dominion fleets were either destroyed or surrendered. Millions of Dominion soldiers laid down their arms knowing the humans could not be defeated. Admiral Holt's voice echoed over all channels. High Lord Korath, your empire is finished. Surrender, and your people will live. Resist, and they will die. The choice is yours. Korath, humbled and defeated, sent a message of surrender. The Dravak Empire had fallen. Across the galaxy, humans cheered. Ships erupted in celebration. For the first time, humanity had defeated an empire older than most species' histories. Justice for New Horizon. For those who had doubted humanity's resolve, there was now no question. The destruction of New Horizon had sparked a storm. Earth's vengeance was absolute. Admiral Holt oversaw the liberation of the Dominion's worlds. Cities once burned by the Dravak were rebuilt. Rebel planets were restored. Former slaves were freed. Humanity did not enslave or destroy in turn. They did not become like the empire they had defeated. Their retribution was swift, fair, and absolute. Every Dominion soldier and leader knew the cost of attacking a human colony, and every species in the galaxy took note. Humanity would protect its own, no matter the cost. A new order. The war left the galaxy changed forever. The Dominion was no more. Its territories were divided among former rebels and newly freed systems. Humans were no longer seen as newcomers. They were a force that demanded respect. Trade routes reopened under human protection. Alliances formed with species who had once mocked or ignored Earth. And wherever humans had fought, their courage became legend. In the heart of the Terran Armada, Admiral Holt spoke to his fleet. We fought for our people. We fought for New Horizon. We fought for humanity itself. Never forget this day. Never forget what we can achieve when we stand together. The galaxy will remember us, not for our destruction, but for our strength, our courage, and our will. The fleet roared its approval, engines blazing against the dark void. The legacy years later, children of liberated worlds would look at the stars and hear stories of New Horizon and the Terran Armada. They would learn of brave pilots, fearless Marines, and clever captains who faced impossible odds and triumphed. Books, holovids, and histories would record the saga, reminding future generations. Humanity was not only capable of surviving, it was capable of leading, inspiring, and changing the galaxy.